For children with special needs, school is a place of reassurance and security. But one day, your child with special needs will become an adult with special needs and will have to leave school. Are you preparing today for tomorrow? Where will your now adult child live? How will they get from place to place? Where will they receive services? These are key questions that will impact your child's future. That's why the time to prepare for tomorrow is today. To begin, an Individualized Education Plan, or IEP, is developed when a school-age student is first identified for special education services, which can be as young as 5 or 6.
A child with disabilities is entitled to an education until they're through their 21st birthday, and after that, then they will move on into adult programming of their choice.
At the end of the school year in which the student has met the requirements for graduation, and not later than the end of the school year in which they turn 21, the young adult must transition with their family from services based in the school to services based in the community. Our goal is to assist families with finding adult residential, day, community, and vocational services that bring the student closer to home when they leave a children's residential program. Parents and students will have many choices to make along the way, and they will need time to explore the adult service providers and options available.
We needed help to help Joe at that time in his life and for his future.
Today, there is a team ready to help. Planning for the transition to adulthood begins as early as the age of 12, when the first vocational assessment is conducted. This starts the looking down the road part of transition planning on the IEP. Other vocational assessments will occur as the student moves through their education and goals are identified. The Committee on Special Education, or CSE, and the Children's Residential and Educational Program prepare the family for transition starting as early as age 14. Each year, the Children's Residential and Educational Team, Committee on Special Education, Student, and Family determine education and vocational goals as well as plans for independent living. The results are documented in the Individual Education Plan as the Coordinated Set of Transition Activities, or Transition Plan.
With the IEP process, and they start doing some of the preliminary decision making about what kind of classes and students are going to be offered through the end of middle school, high school.
At the age of 15, the transition plan within the Individualized Education Plan goes into effect and is monitored and adjusted as needs arise.
That's the actual document that is used to decide what services and what goals are going to be worked on in the school setting, and it's developed with the CSE team, which is the Committee on Special Education, and that's the whole team, the teachers, special ed teachers, social workers, all the service providers, OT, PT, speech, the psychologist that's doing evaluations at the school, as well as the parent and the individual are all going to be a part of that process and the writing of that IEP.
I felt that everybody cared about Kevin's dreams and my dreams for Kevin, what we could do to benefit Kevin in the future.
When children turn 16, their CSE will determine if they are ready for volunteer opportunities in the community, internships, or are eligible for vocational rehabilitation services. If vocational rehabilitation services are required, teens and their families are introduced to agencies that will help them prepare for an individualized plan for employment.
So we have like an ETP program, an employment training program, and that is a very intensive, almost internship type service, with the goal being that the person gets hired by the company at the end of that process. And moving up from there, we have community pre-vocational services, which again are going to be a mix of sort of site-based and community-based services, but it's skill development, always trying with the goal of getting the person out and employed in the community. Additionally, we have pathways to employment, where you're going to get a little bit more one-on-one support as you're doing that skill development, things like how to be prepared for an interview, hygiene at work, interpersonal skills with your coworkers, things like that.
We want to prepare these children for moving on in their lives into the world of adult education or adult work. So the focus is very occupational, very vocational as our kids age up into adulthood.
But to think that he got to the point where he could learn those basic skills really led us to believe that, bringing him to the program, although it was the hardest thing we had to do, we knew was the best thing.
Yeah.
At this time, the educational team will complete assessments to determine the student's interests, skills, and capabilities to see if a student is ready to pursue volunteer opportunities in the community with staff support, internships, or vocational rehabilitation. Also at age 16, the Family, Student, OPWDD Transition Coordinator, Children's Residential and Educational Team, and Transition Coordinators work to identify and select adult agencies that can provide the needed supports for the young adult.
And if we can find the right setup and the right supports, people rise to that challenge, and it can really be impressive to watch people do something that you thought maybe would be too hard for them, and they do it and they excel at it.
By the age of 18, the student is nearing graduation, and the most intensive phase of transition planning begins. This is important because school-based services will end once the student turns 21. Parents and students will begin to choose who will provide a variety of services.
You really shouldn't have any interruption to services at 18 or 21 whenever you come out of high school. If the service coordinator is involved in doing what they need to be doing and getting everything in place for you, at the end of that process, you should be able to really leave high school on your last day in June and start in your adult services within a week or two.
With the moment of adulthood approaching, a variety of services are available, including general or special education to meet academic requirements, or career and technical education. Related services such as speech pathology and audiology, psychological services, physical and occupational therapy, counseling services, school health services, even parent training. Community experiences include volunteering, residential or college tours, and recreational activities to promote community integration. Daily living skills are taught, including homemaking and finance management, and assessment activities are undertaken to reveal more about the student's needs, preferences, and interests. Remember, transition is about change, but the only way goals are reached is when the family and student become active advocates.
Getting your voice heard only begins with using your voice and saying something. And if you say nothing, you get nothing. So you really, really need to just ask.
He's going to be moving on into his own new home, with his own bedroom, with different people. Change is going to be challenging for the two of us and for him, but I think that it's gonna go pretty well.
Kevin became an adult, and now he can do so many more things that I ever dreamed he could do.
Change doesn't have to be scary. With proper planning, change can be beautiful. For additional information, contact your child's residential and education provider.